Is there any one place that you get your effects samples from, like gunshots and things like that?
You know, I've actually just been collecting samples for like 11 years, you know. I have like a space on my hard drive that's dedicated to just putting little audio sound bites that I like. So I just keep all of them, and every time I build a new computer, I just copy and paste that whole folder on there, and I just keep all my sounds with me. So I've collected quite a little interesting collection over the years. They come from all different places.
So, have you ever just like made your own beats or anything with all of these samples, just for fun?
Yeah, well, you know, like when I work with some bands, they'll come in and it'll just be, you know, guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. And they're like, okay, we want you to just add cool stuff, you know. But we think on this song it would be cool if you added like a little distortion drum beat. They might guide me, or they might just say, do whatever you want. So yeah, there are times where I literally just open a song and add little rap beats and like extra post-production type things. And when I make them, I could either start by using like battery, I could start by using a loop, I could start by just dragging in kick hits manually. It's just a kind of an organic process in terms of how it gets built. I might start from scratch, I might start from a loop, but whatever it is, it ends up getting morphed and molded quite a bit. So sometimes I might take even an acoustic kick drum, just one sample of a single kick drum hit, and then run it through like a pixelator and then distort it and then put like a high pass filter, and now I've got this weird just little tick sound, you know what I mean? So.
Awesome. We're getting a lot of questions about glitching.
That's coming up.
That's coming up.
That's
so
at the end.
Yeah, that's at the end. So if you're watching and you have a question about glitching, it's coming up at the end. Cool. RGS wants to know, I'd really like to hear your particular process for a reverse vocal.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder how we skipped that. That's great. I'll show you how to do it. Reverse vocal is a little bit more complicated because if you just take a vocal part and reverse it, it sounds stupid. So you have to do some special things to make it sound cool. Let me find, I know we have one in the song. So here's a reverse yeah. That sounds really scary. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Here's the yeah that he did for a vocal. Now, he takes a breath before he does the yeah. We don't want that breath. We're going to isolate just the vocal part that he did, and we're going to use that. So what I do is I usually go in, I zoom in my waveform so I can see everything. I take my range tool and I just select just the word. And it's important to get it as close as possible, like that. And then I hit P, which sets my locators to my selection. And I have this soloed. So when I hit play, all you're going to hear is the yeah. But you need to turn off anything like delay, so I'm going to just go through and turn off my delay setting, effects and stuff. Okay, now that I've got that, I'm going to just do an export because I have it soloed. So if I hit export, it's just going to export what I hear. And I'm just going to call it yeah, 2. And then make sure that my output channel is my master. Then it's going to import it back into the song as a new track. Okay, so now I have that yeah all combined, and it's in its own little audio file. So the next step is to take that and reverse it. So I'm going to go reverse. And then I'm going to go into plugins, and I'm going to go to reverb. And I'm just going to add like a 6. Let's see. See what this sounds like. Sounds really scary. And then when you're working with these plugins in this mode, you have to change how. Right now, it's only going to keep the audio the same length that you put it in, so you need to change the tail so that it'll actually add the reverb tail to the final product. So I usually just do like 6,000, which is 6 seconds. So you get that 6 seconds of reverb tail when the signal ends, and then you just hit process. Now, what it will do is it'll just keep that audio event the same length that it was, so you have to actually drag it out after you do it, like that. Okay, now this is where it gets kind of complicated, because we have a piece of audio that's in reverse, but we need to line it up with the original vocal. I'm going to show you how to do it exactly. So what you have to do is you have to keep, this whole time we've kept our locators to our original selection, so we got to keep that like that. I'm going to hit 1, which is going to put my cursor back at the start of that selection. And then I'm going to take the original audio and then just cut it there. And the reason why I'm doing that is because this tells Cubase that there's a new event that starts right here, and you're going to be able to snap to that. So if I take this and reverse it again, and then turn on snap to event, I can drag this backwards, and it should line up with the original vocal line. Let me see. Yeah, so there, it did it. And then you can re-glue this again. Then you should get a reverse vocal that goes into the original vocal. Now, the next thing you have to do is a little bit of fading to make it blend well. So I usually just kind of cut somewhere around halfway point and then fade it out like this. And then you can make it more intense by adding like a limiter. And then you've got to make sure that your fade out is really smooth, because you don't want to hear the original vocal mixed with, you don't want to hear the original vocal double up, because it's still in this thing that we printed. So we're trying to make it go from that sound to as smooth as possible, but without making it sound like it just stops. I might have to move it around too. There we go. That sounds good. Let's hear it in the song. That's how you do it. Any other questions?
Are there any particular engineers who have inspired you as far as all of these lead-ins and these Michael Bay effects, quote unquote?
I think I probably started getting interested in that kind of stuff when I listened to like John Feldman productions, because he did a lot of stuff like that. You should listen to like a band called The Matches. They worked with Feldman. He did some really cool stuff with them. Also The Used and Story of the Year, stuff like that. Cool.
Awesome.
Sweet. Okay, so we kind of covered the bass drops. Well, at least we did bass risers. I'll show you how to do some bass drops. I think bass drops sound better when they're in key with the song, so it helps to know, where you're going to put the bass drop and then what are the instruments playing at that point. So if we go to like the breakdown, we know this song is in drop A sharp. All the instruments are going to be playing A sharp. So if we want to add a bass drop there, we kind of want it to start A sharp and then go down. Now when I did this song, I didn't have Sub Destroyer. So I just used a sample, an audio sample for my bass drop. Now I could have made that bass drop better by putting it in key with the song, so I'm going to show you how to do that. It all starts with Sub Destroyer and then going into trigger mode. And in trigger mode, you have a start frequency and an end frequency. So you can choose where you want your bass drop to start and where you want it to end. So if I start it, I can move this knob and it tells me what note I'm on. So it looks like 59 hertz is an A sharp. Oh, we're in G sharp, right? 52 hertz. So I could start it an octave up as well. I could start at like 100 hertz, 101 hertz, and then end it at 20. And then you just set how long you want it to be. So I could set it for like, let's just say 4 seconds. And it sounds like this. It's probably going to sound funny. I'll just preview it. Yeah, exactly. So it starts too high. So we're going to start it at 50 hertz. 52 hertz, whatever. Yeah. So sometimes it's not always a perfect world. I didn't really like that, so I'm just going to use any note I want. I don't really care at this point. It just depends on what tuning you're using. If you're working with like a maybe drop B, then you can get away with starting on the note like that. So for this song, I'm just going to do whatever sounds good. I'll just hit play and try it. I like that. That sounds good. So all you have to do is just turn your right automation on and then hit play and then click on fire the moment you want it to happen. And then when you go into the automation lane, you should see your little button press and you can move it in time. You can just select all the little edit points that go with it and then right click and go, where is it? Move to cursor. So if you have your cursor here, it'll move it there. If you have your cursor here, it moves it there. So move to cursor. And now you get. And then we've got various tools included in here to make it, stick out more if you want. You could also use a limiter, but since it's a perfect sine wave, you probably wouldn't need to use a limiter unless you were dealing with like some distortion settings and stuff. So that's how you would do the bass drop. I would say it's generally pretty easy to make a bass drop apparent in the song. Like I feel like you can hear this one pretty solid. But if you are in a situation where you want your bass drop to be even more apparent, sometimes all you have to do is a couple of little volume changes. So like if I go into my bass tracks just the actual bass guitar track. Sounds like this. And I take the length of my bass drop and put an automation edit there. I can just do a little bit of a fade in like this. And sometimes that's just enough to make the bass drop stick out more. And you can do that with like the lower instruments, like your bass, if you've got like bass synths going on. Just allows your bass drop to hit just a little bit more. You could also do an inversion. So if I go to my bass drop track, and let's say I raise the volume of that track right when the bass drop comes in, but then I also go to my master and I change my input gain of my master chain by the same amount. So if I do like -2, wait, what is this? -6. So if I do -8, which is 2 dB lower than it was before, and then I raise my bass drop track by 2 dB as well. That will make it more apparent. Does that make sense? I think. So that's, you're lowering the input to your mastering chain, but then you're raising the overall volume of your bass drop, which basically causes it to be like overemphasized. I just want people to realize that bass drops aren't that cool, so don't overdo it. There's way too many bass drops in music today.
Yeah.
Okay, so we covered all the reverse different things, and the tape stop is the same thing as the pitch envelope.
Okay.
Yeah, there is some cool glitches in this song. I think my favorite, and it's the tiniest little thing, but it's like my favorite thing about this song, is how it starts. Just that tiny little glitch right there is, you know, if it wasn't there, it would just be like this. Which I mean, I think that's boring. So I added that little glitch there just to give it a nice little interesting intro. Now, the way I did that is I went to the synth and I grabbed a tiny little piece from the beginning and I copy and pasted it over here and I duplicated it. Now, if you just duplicate it and listen to it, it sounds a little bit different than what I actually ended up with, right? So how did I get to that point? Well, once I had the idea and I knew that I wanted to do this kind of glitch, I did it and then I hit play and I felt like that sounded kind of weird, like kind of cartoony. So then I grabbed all of my copy and pasted events and I did a slip maneuver where now I'm like slipping the audio within all the different events, and you're going to get different sounds. So as you do different locations, you come up with different noises. So I ended up with like something like this. But then I felt like it didn't have enough definition, so what I did is I actually shortened each one, which gave me a little more definition of each. So once you have that silence gap, you can hear the attack of the next note. If it's not there, then it just sounds like one solid piece of audio. And the shorter you make these, the more it morphs it. So yeah, that's how I did that, the beginning of the song. And then there's another interesting glitch in this song where I do a guitar glitch. And it's right before the breakdown. This one. So I had this idea for this part. I first came up with this as almost like a drum part. Da 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 da. But I knew I didn't want it to be like a drum fill. I knew I wanted it to just be like a sound effect. So I decided to use guitars. But you can make guitars percussive by just taking little tiny pieces of like chords. So if I go into the first chord of the breakdown, which is a palm mute, you can actually just cut that out and use like the tiniest slice, like a little 64th note. And if you just play that, it sounds like a little percussive noise. And as you just repeat it, I'm just repeating it, create all these different sounds. Now, the nice thing about Cubase is you have that slip tool. So you can just grab a piece of audio and start slipping it around and getting all these different tones. So if I make like a pattern like this, I can change the way the pattern sounds just by slipping the audio inside. And these are just the different parts of the guitar recording. And then you can also create different sounds by putting it together like this. Actually loop this, it'd be easier. I can even create tinier slices and you'll get a different result as well. And then having different space gaps creates different effects as well. As well as changing the timing of your gaps. Hard drive is freaking out. Why is it doing that? Okay, well, they can hear this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, because Cubase is freaking out right now, but it's working, I think. Okay, so you just take, okay, cool. So you just take these little clips and you can slip the audio within them and create different sound effects just by slipping audio around. And then like various combinations of repeating and slipping gives you all these different sounds as well as your spacing. Now, I wanted to show one particular glitch that I really like, and I call it the matrix effect. So the concept of this is making a piece of audio longer, but by doing it with repeats. So you take a little clip of audio like this, and then you copy and paste it, but then you slip it back a little bit. And you copy and paste it again, then slip it back a little bit more. And you repeat that process over and over, like this. And you end up with, so that's like the matrix effect. It's really cool in vocals. Show you. So it's just start with a vocal line like this, cut out a tiny slice, and then repeat it, slip it back a little bit. Let's hear what that sounds like. So yeah, the more you do it, the longer it gets. Yeah, so that's the matrix effect.